This game is a joke, and apparently Sony was not in on the joke. Knack 2, on the other hand, is a masterpiece. Oh, look at the graphics on that. Look at the graphics on that game.
Knack is back.
You can play as Ice Knack.
I saw the cells they had, or like animation storyboard stuff for like, he was originally going to be the voice of Shrek.
I know. It would have been
And
a
it was
very
what,
different
Chris
movie.
Farley as Shrek?
Yeah, look up
Yeah.
a clip. There's
No,
clips of him
it's
voicing
really,
Shrek.
Here, I have it on my history.
It's
really
so
cool,
weird.
It's
I think
really
it
weird.
Yeah.
But it actually kind of fits though.
I think it would have worked. It would have been a very different film though.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Because he sounds a lot more gritty and like an actual ogre, you'd imagine, whereas Mike Myers is kind of like a goofy...
No, donkey!
Yeah.
No!
Chris Farley's was almost like... It would almost been like existential. Like
That would have been... I don't know if I would have liked that.
I think it would have been different.
But
It's
you
hard
think,
to-
but
it's
you
hard to
think though,
imagine.
because like you're like, oh, but you already have this
But
perception
you would have never...
of Shrek.
Yeah.
But like you wouldn't have had that original
That's
perception
true.
going
That's
into it
true.
anyways.
I'm just...
Donkey.
Just what would it be without like, donkey? No donkey!
Get in my
Who's
belly.
grumbling? Who's
That's
got that
me.
McDonald's grumble?
That's
I got
me.
that McD grumble.
It's totally me. Jeez.
Give me a little burpee.
Put in the mic. This is Chris Farley as
Hey, if you're not doing this for Cockle Woman, why are you doing it?
Simple. Fartwad gets his princess, I get what I want.
Which is? Now, come on, what do you want?
I don't have time to set it to music.
Oh, this is another one of those onion things.
No, this is one of those drop it and leave me alone things.
Well, why don't you want to talk about it?
Why do you want to talk about it?
Why are you answering the question with a question?
Why are you asking questions I don't want to answer?
Why are you blocking?
I'm not blocking.
Then why do you have problems expressing your wants?
I don't. I want you to shut up. See? No problem.
You're just displacing your anger.
Believe me, it's properly placed.
You're really mad at whoever did this to you.
Interesting.
No one did anything to me.
Let's phase it
someone
out.
hurt
It's
you, man. Someone hurt you many years ago.
I could see it. I think it's
hard to
almost,
imagine, yeah.
Because I was watching the sketches and they're almost like, I feel like you almost needed to you'd need to make a scrawnier Shrek, because I think if he was more wimpy looking, then Chris Farley's voice would have fit better.
His voice.
No,
But
is
when I think of big burly Shrek,
But
what
you
fits
think,
is he's like,
but this is the thing though. You think of Shrek that way because you have this
no,
perception.
like
of
when
Shrek
I
already.
see big burly Shrek, I don't hear Chris Farley that sound. I hear like a
You
more
hear Mike
scrawny.
Myers
No, I
doing-
hear like a scrawnier character. Like I don't.
Yeah, his
think,
voice has a different.
Yeah,
a different
yeah,
body.
exactly. Because like I mean, I don't know. I feel like it'd be the same thing of like Dipper Pines. You know, the guy who voices him.
Yeah.
It's like I wouldn't want like someone who's like, oh hey Mabel, you know, I would
Or
expect
what-
the guy who
what's-
makes Snake.
What's the guy's that joke that they make in the one Mabel episode where he's like, I'm super cool Dipper, and he like has like the neon glasses and stuff.
Oh
and,
yeah.
Dip
Or,
flip, bro. Just,
Kaz and what are those two fake characters from?
oh, I know you're talking. Yeah, Mabel's imagination.
We're not
real. Anyway, yeah,
Are we
we absolutely
recording?
are.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
In 3,
2,
Two.
5.
1.
Guys, your lips are moving. You gotta just count. Oh, okay. 5, 4.
And we're rolling.
Welcome back to the Pop Culture Punks podcast, bringing pop culture back to the pit.
Yeah, buddy, let's mosh. About to get that mosh on.
This week we will actually be
pits.
discussing what makes a video game great. I would laugh if we didn't.
Since the dawn of time.
I know. I was gonna. No, I wanted to be the one. I was gonna be like, "What are we discussing today?"
I literally was like, I know you're gonna get to it.
Oh, I have a
I'll do a
couple. I
different
have a couple
mostly.
reminders before we get into the
The
craziness.
precursor.
Stickers, we still have them.
Yeah, buddy.
We got a lot of them.
Yeah, buddy.
If you want them, you should send us a podcast idea, question for one of us or all of us, or your favorite podcast moment, or new caveat, You can also recommend something to us, like a
Ooh,
TV show or a
that's a good
movie or a
idea.
comic or a game that we haven't talked
I
about
like that.
that you want us to check out, and we may or may not check it out, but you could get a sticker if you throw us a recommend. So you can get in on the conversation. And also leave us a review on whichever platform you are listening on. We would greatly appreciate that. So
Definitely.
if you like us, give us some stars. If you don't like us, give
Posi
us no
vibes.
stars. Posi vibes only. I got my Posi Vibes sweatshirt on today.
Yeah, buddy.
My bro got me this for Christmas.
Your bro's posse.
Keep it Posi.
Keep it
In the-
posy.
Pit.
Yeah.
I can't. I still can.
Keep it posy in the pit.
You'll grow into it.
I'll try. I'll try.
Rounding in the pit, baby.
Vanessa.
No. Zip it.
On that note, what have you guys been up to this week, pop culture wise?
Well, let me tell you, Phil.
Oh, do you have to go first?
Just
What
keep
does that mean?
I'm kidding.
You can go. No. By all means, you go. You go ahead.
And we got a movie to see this
Really?
afternound, so
Yeah. So
keep,
we're
we
actually
gotta keep it
gonna
rolling.
We
yeah.
gotta hurry.
go for it.
All right, I'll be quick. The only big thing of note is I am huge into My Hero Academia. It's shaping up to be one of my all-time favorite manga, actually.
Do you have
Maybe
the
number
manga?
one. I do.
I need to borrow that from you.
I have all 12 books,
Dang.
and they are
I
precious.
need to borrow
yeah.
Akira from you as well.
You do. I only have the first 2 books with me, but I have like all of them at home. So, yeah, the short of it is that I don't want to spoil anything because I'm like technically ahead because the 3rd season is just coming out now, and neither of you guys have watched it,
I
so
haven't watched any of it.
gotta wait. You,
I recommend.
yes,
You
it
being
is.
a superhero action
Yeah.
fan, it's
I recommend-
it's real good.
Yeah, I recommend the anime or the manga to any like fan of superhero stuff. Like if you like Marvel or DC, this is, in my opinion, I mean like I'm biased because I love anime and manga, but the way the quote unquote superhero society is constructed in this is top notch. And you can probably even vouch for me, Josh. Like the way it's constructed is very unique compared to what most stuff is.
There's
done.
a fun twist on what society would be like if superheroes existed. Like it's almost gosh, how would it? It's almost like a job, like literally,
Mhm.
versus like
versus like there's the hero that comes in and
like,
saves the day.
where's Superman? We need, oh, here I am, and then he just kind of flies off. Whereas this is legit. You do it for credibility.
This is your
and
living, yeah.
Because
This is
basically
like your
everybody's a superhero, so it's like if
The
everybody's
majority of
super,
the population has they call them
Quirks.
quirks.
Yeah.
So if everybody's super, then it's kind of just like, well, we're all just
Some people use them to be villains, and then the villains are hunted down by the superheroes, and the superheroes get
Yeah.
paid, and there's like rankings on who's the best, and certain quirks are
interesting.
Yeah,
quote unquote
and there's
better
like,
than
and then the
others.
main story takes place in a school where these kids are becoming those kind of superheroes, and
Okay.
the main character is mentored by his childhood hero,
who's like the greatest superhero.
is like the number one
ever.
superhero, All Might, who is awesome,
Fantastic character.
The way they do him is or the way they draw him and stuff like that is he is this muscularly, almost like Superman-esque dude, but like his face stays the exact same.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this funny thing of like he has the furrowed brow, like the wide smile, but that's like whenever he's in muscular mode, that's like his only face and pose he makes. So it's like he'll come in the room just like with, even if he's like shocked or angry or something, he'll just have that like same face, but then
Mhm.
with like an angry word bubble or just be like, hey,
Interesting.
But to basically make my last pitch for it, yeah, if you are a superhero fan of stuff, or like if you're looking for, I'd even say if you're looking for an anime or manga to get into, because I know I have a lot of friends who don't really know where to start, and which is valid because there's so many of them, and
Yeah.
a lot of them there are some people that will be like, oh, check this out, and then it ends up being like, you're like, why would you watch that kind of show? It's just, well,
Yeah,
one of my
there's-
friends
yeah.
was saying that he tried showing Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood to a friend who had never seen anime before. I was like, that's not
It's a
an
good show,
introduction.
but it's definitely not an
It's
introductory
dark.
one.
It is
Yeah.
very dark.
Yeah.
That is not a good start into it. But My Hero Academia is one where it's very lighthearted. It gets very, very serious. But
Especially in the age of superheroes.
Yeah.
in
A
the
lot of people- it's
we're
like
in a time where
mainstream now.
superhero is a mainstream thing, and this show is set apart from all the other superhero stuff, in my opinion. And just like great character developments, like the protagonist is one of the best protagonists in any anime, just his character and stuff like that. So yeah, if you're itching for a manga or anime show, or if you like are just starting out, this is like a universal thing. So I recommend My Hero Academia.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm super enjoying the manga and geeking out about that. That was all I
Nice.
had to share. That's the only big
Nice.
thing for me.
I'm actually going to talk music this week because
Yeah,
I
you
have
had quite a list.
one video game note on here, but I'm just like not. It's Far Cry, basically saying that's what I've been
Still hyped
dishing a
on
lot
it?
of time in. Still hyped on it. Still love it. Only gets better. It feels like. So first thing is oh gosh, I've been a Breaking Benjamin fan since like probably late middle school, like 8th grade. And I remember there was a stretch of time where there was like all, issues with their label and band and stuff like that. But they've had 2 dynamite albums recently. And what was their last one? Ashes of Eden?
Ashes of Eden.
And so that was really good. I was like,
I'm
whoa,
surprised
this
they
is
kept the quality because
Yeah.
I think he's the only
original
guy who's left.
Yep.
But like they sound so.
Oh
they
my
still
gosh.
sound like Breaking Benjamin.
Yeah. And so Ashes of Eden, I was like, wow, this is fantastic. Like some of the songs on there are just spectacular. But then Ember just came out, and holy
Is that the
shnikes,
album or a
it's
song?
the album.
What's the album?
Okay.
It is phenomenal. Red Cold River, Blood, Tourniquet. Like, there's just something about Ben Burnley's voice that is just. They're literally. I would say this. It's the same reason I like Ivan Moody and David Draymond. They're just, you cannot.
Really dynamic.
You just can't, like, no matter where they go or what band they're in, because of their vocals, that band will always be unique or separate from anybody else. And Ember's really good. So if you're kind of like either Breaking Benjamin fan, you probably already
Hard rock
listened
fan.
to it. But if you're like a hard rock fan, borderline like metal, but not quite the
If
intensity.
you like Linkin Park, you like
yeah,
Breaking Benjamin.
yeah, it's pretty close. It's kind of close. It's got that kind of edge, but fantastic, really sweet. Then new Five Finger song from their new album. Gosh, what is it called? It's got the most intense.
Champagne.
The song is Champagne. Injustice for None
Oh yeah.
is the album.
Some people were ticked. It kind of triggered some people
Whatever. They're like,
because they're like, "Injustice for none." What are you talking about? SJW, Five Finger Death Punch.
Ivan Moody's not SJW. Whatever.
But dude, the album covers look
It's
so brutal. Like
intense.
the Grim Reaper with dual revolvers.
Yeah,
It's
it's just like staring.
Is that
at-
really what it
yeah,
is?
it's
one of them.
it's-
That's the
I,
deluxe edition. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And the other one's him like standing on the president's podium, like super buff, just like
Whoops. I was meaning to show. That's the art. If you can see that.
so brutal. It's like classic
just-
Five Finger.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I have to say I like these album covers a lot better than like American Capitalist. I wasn't a huge fan of that.
Yeah,
album
the
cover,
The,
but
like
I
the real
liked,
life one.
I liked Way of the Fist was a sweet
Yeah.
one, and then War's the Answer was a cool one too.
War's
I
the
think
Answer's
this is a
probably-
return to form, definitely.
Yeah.
That's probably my favorite.
Maybe in
cover.
terms of the art.
Art.
Song wise.
Song wise, I think they're just throwing something together because
Yeah.
they want to get off their label.
we know
Yeah.
the history because we were talking about the songs recently, which is hard because like Gone Away, their cover of that is spectacular.
And that's why I feel like between Gone Away and the quality of that song and then the 2 songs that come out, I'm like, something's got to be going on here. Like,
exactly.
I feel like they just threw these songs together to like a middle finger to their label or
basically. And I mean, in Champagne, the newest song that came out, and it's not actually the drink champagne. It's sham, as in like
SHAM,
that's fake, and then pain,
fake pain,
like
yeah.
actual pain. So it's like fake pain.
It's
and
it's
then,
I like the theme of the song. I
I
think
see.
it's like you said, it's not as dynamic as it could be.
but I think it's the most like literally specific that Ivan has ever been in a song about.
He calls,
like,
he calls out TMZ.
screw our label,
and
screw
calls out-
TMZ,
yeah.
screw all these other people, screw fans. It was like, dang, he's out for
The chorus
blood.
is pretty good on that one, though.
Yeah.
And then it's encaptured by the Grim Reaper with 2 revolvers.
Right.
Yep.
So I'm hoping that I knew that they were in issues with their label, and so this was just kind of like get out the door. However, I know there's been like their last album, Got Your Six. There's like, I like the majority of the songs, but there are a few that I was like, oh, I don't know how I'm feeling
Yeah.
about this. But then there were other ones that came out that I was like, okay, no, yep, this is just how it goes. There's usually like 3 or 4 that are like, I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
And the rest I'm like, okay. So I'm excited for that. I was gonna mention this rap group I found called Gangsta Grass. We were talking about all that Western infused music, so that got me excited. I was like, I need to find some stuff. It's cool. They sound very similar to some of the soundtrack that is used in Far Cry 5. That's like
Bluegrass.
it's just got like, it's got like a hip hop beat behind it, but it's still got like that Western violin and some guitar
Steel
and
guitar.
banjo, but it's got that like heavy bass kicks and stuff. So it's
Interesting.
really catchy, and the guy who raps for them is really good too. Like he's got like a I don't know the dude's name, but from Jimmy Fallon, he's with the band.
Oh,
or he's with the
Questlove?
Roots. Is it
Or
Questlove who raps? Not the
not
rapper, but
Questlove.
the guy who actually raps for them.
Yeah.
He's got like that kind of sound
okay.
where he's not like, he's not like Logic or Kendrick or anything, but he's
Questlove's the drummer. I forgot.
yeah,
The
Questlove's
Roots.
yeah.
That's what their name is.
Yeah.
So that's been awesome. And then the last thing is a shout out to Jonathan Davis. He's got a new album coming out. I've been hooked
solo
on
album?
his- yeah. So
who's Jonathan Davis?
so Jonathan Davis, lead singer of Korn, has done his own stuff,
Mhm.
but he's like such an interesting character because he's done his own stuff with DJ music, doing like Killbot, and then he's done, a whole bunch of other like solo songs, and then now he has a new, I can't remember what the album's called that's coming out, but he's got a song called What It Is, and then oh gosh, what's the other one that's out recently that's also very good. So I'm really excited. He's one of those two where he's not like my favorite vocalist ever, but I love his sound and just his music ability just alone is worth listening to. Also, Korn's most recent album, Serenity of Suffering, is really good. Check it out. It's
Is what's his name still in that band now?
yeah, Brian
Yeah.
Welch and Fieldy came back
Okay.
a couple years, like a year or two ago. So, which is really cool. They have like a whole story on like why they felt led after even. So Fieldy, for people who don't know the history, Fieldy and Brian Welch from Korn became Christians and they left the band. Brian Welch went to his own band called Love and Death,
Good stuff.
which Lo Lamento, if you haven't heard that song before, it's a great
Jams.
song.
That
Makes
that
me
riff
so
at the
mad
beginning,
because
yeah.
they said that they're not releasing their album that they were working on, which I was like, oh.
Somebody leak it.
But yeah, if you're on a Korn Jonathan Davis kick, definitely check out Love and Death, and definitely check out Lo Lamento by Love and Death. So he left and he was doing his own thing, but now he came back, and then Fieldy also became a Christian, and then he left for a little bit, and then he came back as well. So now Fieldy and Brian Welch are back in the
the
band.
whole
and
lineup is there in their.
they are like
They kind of went
best
on a weird
Korn,
path
in
for
my
a while.
opinion. Best
Yeah.
Korn that's been just the depth and the
Yeah.
sound. Corey Taylor features on one of the songs and it's really good. It's
Corey
like
Taylor. That dude's voice.
yeah,
I think he's one of my favorite vocalists.
for sure. Yeah, he's up there. So yeah, more music focused this week, but
All right.
I've been a huge music like binge recently, but
That's
I feel like
good.
it's needed. It's
Yeah.
weather's
It's fun.
been
It's fun
nasty.
finding new stuff
Yeah,
to
Mhm.
get into and enjoy.
definitely.
I can't think of anything for myself, but
How about you, Philip?
Because of the public library, I've been reading way too many comics.
all thanks
nothing wrong with
to
that.
your local library.
Yeah, I can't. So yesterday, I came home with like 8 comics, like a stack. Nobody else can see it but you guys, but like a stack like this thick.
It's a
Maybe
good
like
foot. It's about a
8
foot.
inches to a foot.
Yeah.
I walk in the door and Evan's sitting on the couch like doing her homework or whatever, and I'm like, Evan, I think I have a problem. So yeah, I think I have like 13 books right now on
Nice.
checked out, and then like
Nice.
15 on hold, like coming to me. So I started reading Sandman by Neil Gaiman, which is supposed to be one of the best like genre defining comic stories. Which is about the Sandman. He's like one of the
Okay, so it is
7
for-
gods.
Oh, okay.
He kind of took a twist on it because DC wanted to revitalize some of their older characters.
Sure.
And they basically like throw out everything that's been done, just do your own thing. And so it's this story
Interesting.
about these people, like they're trying to capture death, but they end up capturing the Sandman. And it sounds weird because when you think of the Sandman, you're like, ooh, sprinkling sand in people's eyes and making them sleep or whatever. But he's like a god, and his sister is death, and like all these different things. And so it's kind of like you get to see how the gods are operating in the plane of the DC universe, because that's where it's in the DC universe. So it's pretty interesting so far. The library has the omnibus like absolute editions, so they're like
The
massive.
absolute
giant.
DC. Yeah,
That's awesome.
DC
Yeah.
publishes absolute editions of like their popular comics,
Yeah.
which are like oversized things. So I think there's 4 of them, and I'm on the first one like halfway through.
You should
And
do
then-
that for Death Note. They have that for the Death Note manga.
Yeah, they
Oh,
do.
do
It's
they?
like an all-in-one giant edition. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's called the Omega edition.
I
think.
watched the show though, so I need at some point to just commit and get the DVD set and just. I mean, it's only
pretty
like
cheap now,
35
you can-
episodes.
So I've been reading that. I started reading a comic called Transmetropolitan, which is about a gonzo journalist in the future in like a cyberpunky type world. And he's just like this nuts dude, and he just like no holds barred, like just I can't even explain it. It's just crazy though. I think it's really fun.
Is it like action oriented, just experiencing.
He's a
world
journalist, so it's like action oriented. He like gonzo journalism is basically like you don't try and be unbiased, but the point of it is to be narrative driven and like basically telling the story through your own eyes, like intentionally, and putting the story in a first person perspective.
What's this called again?
Transmetropolitan.
Transmetropolitan.
So like in
That
the
sounds
first volume, there's like a transhumanist movement who are like trying to get like transhumanist rights or whatever, and he's like following these people, and then this whole thing breaks up where like they incite a riot and the police are like beating him down, but he's like right there watching, and he's like reporting in real time like this is what's happening, and then it gets the police to leave and stuff. So it's kind of like he's just like actively involved in the journalism, and it's like in this cool messy cyberpunk futuristic world that's hyper corporatized and hyper, so it's pretty interesting if you just like nuts over the top actiony like writing focused type stuff.
It sounds
so
exactly like what you would love, Jay.
I think you'd
Probably.
enjoy it.
I'll have to
It's
check
pretty
it out.
intense.
Yeah.
And then I've been reading the Hellboy comics, which
Yeah.
I've fallen in love with.
I really want to read Hellboy. That's what I've been. That's
the
been
art
on my
style
backlog.
is awesome. I just like really like it because he uses a lot of dark colors, and like just the tones is like very horror-esque. But Hellboy himself as a character is kind of goofy and just makes funny like quirks, and it's just awesome.
I've always loved Hellboy's design.
It's awesome.
Okay, I'll have to,
And I watched the movie last night, so I got super hyped. And it's
Nice.
Guillermo too, so
Yeah.
it's pretty solid. It's
I
a little
totally-
cheesy at moments.
I didn't know he directed Pacific Rim, the first one.
Yeah, the first
I didn't
one.
know
I
that
totally,
either.
like
until-
someone told me that. They're like, "Have you seen that yet?" They were
Yeah.
like, "You probably like it." It was Guillermo. I was like, "What?"
Well,
he
'cause
helped.
then-
He helped on the second one too, I think.
Yeah,
but he wasn't involved.
But there, yeah, a lot of people said it was nothing compared to the first one.
Yeah.
Because the first one, Guillermo del Toro like led the direction, whereas for the second one, he wasn't as involved. And
he
people
just
say
had like
it
a
took,
little bit of input. Yeah.
yeah, people said it took a nosedive in terms of quality,
Yeah.
in terms of like I think the narrative and the impact of like stuff from the first movie affecting the second movie just wasn't as good.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to check it out because I, being real, that was one of those movies I saw in theaters and I had no interest in.
Yeah, I mean,
oh,
neither.
here's another mech fighting giant monsters.
Yeah.
And
I don't even think I saw it because I was just
Yeah.
like whatever. But it's Guillermo, so I guess it
I
might be
think
good.
Dixon actually told me to watch it. He's like,
Really?
it was really good.
well, and it
I
was
like,
inspired by like anime mecha and stuff
Yeah.
like that too,
Like
But I've heard
Gaijin or
people-
whatever.
yeah.
and- yeah.
like fighting giant monsters and stuff.
Mhm.
So
yeah, buddy.
Yeah. So yeah, those are the
Cool.
main ones. I've also got like Swamp Thing. There's one called Lazarus, which is post-apocalyptic thing. I literally had to make a spreadsheet. Like I made a spreadsheet and like
That's
started
a true
documenting
pop
like
culture.
which comics do I currently have, which ones do I have on hold, and which ones do I still need to read, because comics are very confusing to figure out which editions have which
Mhm.
things, because there's like trade paperbacks and hardcover volumes and omnibuses.
that's why I could
and-
never. Yeah, that's hard. It was hard for me because like with not to
No,
like down comics at all, because I've said I love comic books too, but
Mhm.
like I think the reason why I usually just, if I want to get into a new series, I just go to a manga series, is because it's like it's just volume one of this
it's easier
series,
to follow.
and you can just, and it's its own thing and it's its
Mhm.
own entity. Whereas like I remember when I was trying to get into Deadpool, there was all this stuff of like, oh, you can start here with this universe, or you can read like this one shot one, or you can read like this sub series that technically isn't tied to the Marvel universe but is really. And I was like, I just want to like,
yeah,
what's
especially with
like the
Marvel.
best one to
Marvel
start
is
with?
like really obsessed with continuity,
Yeah.
and like they don't like with DC, because they have Vertigo and different imprints. Like a lot of their stories are just one shot things. So now it's like you can get Watchmen in one book and it's like not connected, and
yeah.
Dark Knight Returns you can get in one thing, it's not connected, and like, but Marvel is like, I tried getting into Deadpool 2 and I was like, what in the world is going on? Or
Yeah.
X-Men, it's like, I just want to read stories about Logan and
Yeah.
Wolverine, but it's like all of
Right.
these interloping things. I'm like, man, this is intense.
Yeah.
But I feel you. Manga's a lot easier to.
Have you
it's
gotten
like,
into a
oh,
manga? Is that one in your comic book repertoire at the moment?
Not yet. I mean, actually, My Hero Academia sounds fascinating, so I might have to hit
Yes.
you up on that. I want to read Akira as well. I want to read 20th Century Boys, and I want to read Monster. The library does have Monster, but I'm kind of like pulling the reins back now because I've been getting too many
It has
series.
so many series, yeah.
But yeah. And I also have
Nice.
Ronin, which is by Frank Miller. It's like about a samurai. So
What's some of the other stuff he's worked on?
he revitalized Daredevil back in the 80s.
People say
90s.
he has the best, like his iteration is the best iteration.
Yeah, he basically
Sweet.
like made Daredevil who he is today.
He did one also, like it was like Batman Year One or something like that.
He
People said
wrote
it's really,
Batman
really
Year
good.
One. He wrote The Dark Knight Returns, which is like a seminal. He basically, him and Alan Moore with Watchmen basically shifted the tide of comics and made them like, because there was like the Comics Code of Authority, which was like a self-censor, and they basically like shifted the tides to like darker, grittier comics to come in the late 90s. So Frank Miller, he's done 300. He wrote the comic that 300 was based off of. He wrote, I can't remember. There's another movie directed by Zack Snyder that he wrote as well, I think. Oh, Sin City. He wrote the Sin City comics as well, which I have on hold as well. I have too many.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed.
Didn't we? I think our second episode was literally about backlog.
Yeah.
Wasn't
So,
it? I think
We still,
we'll
we still have the same problem.
A comic
it's like,
manga
we haven't
episode
changed.
again, and I'll actually have more opinions
Definitely.
this time.
That'd be fun. Yeah, I'd be down.
So,
That'd be
Sweet.
fun
yeah.
to talk about comics, the comic genre. That'll be a
Yeah.
fun podcast.
definitely. I've been super hyped on it lately, and I've been doing a ton of research on different continuity and just useless knowledge.
Yeah, it's legit.
So.
There's something like really crazy about just the ability to make. I think like that's the thing that always boggles my mind is people in certain spheres downplaying like, oh, it's for kids and oh, it's cartoons for. It's like I don't think you understand how technically sound and skilled you have to be to literally draw 24 frames of this thing to make it look like this, and then to do that for 20-minute episodes for like a 30 episode
Well, and even comics
series or
itself
whatever.
too is it's a medium that only in that medium you can have pictures and words in tandem.
Exactly.
Yep.
And I actually am writing a paper about that for one of my classes of that, like, comics in today's day and age are actually being more accepted than normal. Like, because I'm making the argument just because, like, we have to talk about, like, we have to make an argumentative paper. And I was just saying that, like, comics should be more taught in academia because, like, looking at my college courses that I've taken about comics and stuff is you can get a lot of stuff. Like,
Well, I think
understanding of
comics is-
society and
yeah,
understanding
comics
of
can have more of a social commentary than like actual novels themselves.
exactly, and that's not to say like novels have a lesser degree, but it's more so that like
You get visual and
visual
words,
and
which creates a new context.
Which-
is
Yeah.
exactly, and I think, but thankfully though, I think society is in more of a like transitioning period of that stuff's being more accepted. Like,
And I think the Marvel universe is definitely helping that too.
yeah,
Putting superheroes on the forefront of pop culture and
yeah, but then leading people into like the comic world
Yep.
itself. Because I was just telling Josh this. We went to Barnes and Noble one weekend, and I remember back in the day, middle school, like going to the manga sections and stuff, and it was just this like sectioned off corner, and I'd be
It's
like the
huge
only
now.
one just like going through books. And now it's not only huge, but like every time I go to Barnes and Noble, the manga section, there's like a good stream of people that like 2 or 3 people will walk
Yep.
through, and they're like, it's either high school girls or it's like older dudes or it's like a mother and son. It's like it's a huge variety of people actually getting into that medium, which I find interesting. That it's weird being a part of that, like that change, because I know being a manga nerd for how many years I've been one has been kind of like I obviously wasn't like ostracized,
It was like
but
it was stigmatized.
It was
"Oh, it's for
stigmatized,
kids,
yeah.
Manga's
it's
for, like,
not-" yeah.
kids.
or
or
it's the weird
yeah.
weird comic book stuff. But no, it's
But now
good.
It's becoming more popular.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, for time's sake, because we're going to see, this is a precursor mention of this. We're going to see A Quiet Place in about
Yeah,
an
I'm gonna-
hour.
We were gonna do it after.
And
We were gonna talk about
we're
it
gonna
after,
record
but
tomorrow, which would be
Also,
Sunday.
preface to that, when you talked about the movie thing, I'm like, yeah, I'll do it for the podcast, and now we're seeing the movie after the podcast. So I'm just signing up to see a scary movie.
No. You're signing
No,
up for
it's
next
all-
week.
it's all in fun.
It'll be for next week. Next week,
Yeah.
and then
next week we'll do a movie one or something.
Zach, what's your prediction on what Phil's gonna do?
I'm gonna hear, oh frick. That's probably gonna be his most said. His
I'll
most
say
said
frick a
phrase.
lot, yeah.
I'm anticipating about 20 slouches. I'm
The slouch.
anticipating.
Hand
How
to
many
the
times do you
face.
think I'm gonna go to the bathroom? Because I have to go to the bathroom.
I don't
quote,
know.
unquote.
I'm getting one of them giant Mountain Dews,
Just
so
so
I have
you
an
have
excuse
to.
to get
You're
out
gonna
of
pee your pants.
See, the best part is
There's
you're
a 5%
literally gonna
chance
be
you're gonna-
getting up to go to the bathroom, and something's gonna happen, and you're gonna get scared, and you're gonna
I'm
pee
gonna
right
fall
there. and
over.
you're
Yeah,
gonna be
you know what? You're gonna fall.
You know what?
fall over
Whatever.
and pee my pants, guys. Just leave me down here.
just leave me.
Just leave me.
If you do that, I will be in tears, and I'm gonna ruin the movie for everyone. Cause
Yeah, everyone's gonna hate us.
Oh, it's gonna be fun.
listen to the podcast.
But
Yeah, I fall down, pee my pants. Check out Pop Culture Punks.
Pop culture puns. Keep it positive. I peed again. Oh.
I'm still peeing.
Oh gosh, that's funny.
Yeah, so I'm predicting lots of like noises and like over exaggerated jumping motions in
Yeah.
your seat.
Oh,
I need to bring
I'm-
you like a stuffed animal or something.
I need a blankie. Give me a blankie.
Give me a blank.
I could see it.
Oh gosh.
Anyway,
Want
It's gonna be
to do a
hilarious.
quick
Let's
minute
dive
of
in.
a little bit of
we'll
impressions? And
we'll
then-
save
No, we
that.
gotta
We'll
save
save
time.
that because we're
Yeah.
looking at time.
So this week we were talking about what makes video games great, which is
Well,
an
we-
incredibly objective topic.
Super objective.
Yeah. So yeah, what are your guys' thoughts?
No leading questions. No.
Here, let's see what we got here.
You're a bad director.
Well, let's talk about the subject.
You're like George Lucas.
Oh gosh.
Like, okay.
Wow.
Sorry.
Wait, George Lucas is
That was
pretty
mean to
good,
me.
isn't he?
No.
He's not the one directing the new Star Wars movies.
No, I don't think so. What's it? Can I do George Lucas? Okay, now just want you to. All right, just why don't you just hold your lightsaber like that, and then just swing it around
You're doing
a little
like the
bit.
Chris Oni.
I want to play with Jar Jar. I want to play with
Yeah.
Jar Jar in the tub.
Oh, that is one of my favorite.
So now we're
all-time
doing
favorite-
impressions now? Is that a thing?
No, there's a
It's Rupert the Bear.
one of my favorite YouTubers, Chris Oni did. He was just they were playing some Star Wars game, and he made a joke about like George Lucas with like putting Jar Jar in like every single Star Wars movie. And he's like, "Oh, I want Jar Jar to kill Han Solo." and he's like, "George, we can't do that." Oh,
He's like,
it's
I
so
want
good.
I want to play with Jar
I
Jar.
want
in the
Jar
bath-
Jar in the bathtub.
I want Jar
That's
Jar in the
funny.
bathtub.
No,
Yeah,
no,
he was,
George.
he was the guy who he animated the Dragon Ball Z thing, didn't he? So he's the guy. Yeah, he was the guy who did that. In this episode of Dragon Ball B, Christian Stewart in Virginia.
Oh gosh.
All right, take it away.
So, well, let's start with the subjective. What are some ways that you guys assess the quality of a game? Like how do you decide when you want to buy a game and when you're going to hold off?
if it looks good,
Before that, I think it would be of benefit if we kind of establish like what our goal of discussing this is. Like, it's not necessarily to tell you how you should see a good game, but it's more
wrong.
to-
That's exactly what we're trying
No
to
word.
do.
Yeah, that's
That's why we started this podcast
we started this podcast so we could like make ourselves seem superior
and tell
over
people
others.
what to love.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think it's more like how do we understand and how do we look at games as individuals more than like
Us telling you,
us telling
yeah.
like what is a good game and what's not.
and giving advice for what to look for and stuff to
Mhm.
possibly make a better decision. And
So it could be like
Finding
subjective
the-
stuff, like what do we like personally and what makes us like buy a game, but also like what is gonna turn us off from a game and like what do we see in classic games that makes them survive? Like why are a lot of games from the NES and the SNES still
relevant.
popular today? Like why is Chrono Trigger still a game people play even though it's like
good.
yeah.
Yeah, well,
And
I
so,
can go
like,
into that, but
Definitely.
And so like
Yeah,
what are those things?
I wanted to clarify for everyone because I imagined it as in the same way that Chris put it on our Tilt Brigade episode, which was like a fantastic point. I think this is like what we live by when engaging with pop culture is what is that thing trying to do? Like whether it's a film or an album or a movie or film, video game, comic, whatever. Like what is that thing trying to do? And so for games, it's like, yes, we have subjective tastes that I'm more a fan of like action movies, and this is more of a melodrama in an action, in like a sci-fi, but I still like it because XYZ things are like objectively good things and I appreciate them. So, but since I'm still talking, I'll say my thing. My
is that how it works?
yeah,
That's how I do it.
absolutely.
no, that's definitely what happened when I stole the spotlight. So
Yeah, you
It's all good.
just
I jacked your spot,
jacking my segue again. Shame on you.
Little
So
Little
I
brothers
think-
do that.
I think for me, what really is the biggest thing for a game is feeling like it's purposeful or that I can do something in it and gain something from playing the game. I think
What do you mean by gain something, like in real life or?
no. So in the general ethos of video gaming,
Ooh.
I don't.
Here we go,
I
Mr.
don't-
Big
yeah, I
Word
know.
over
Just
here.
throwing it out there.
Talk about the ethos of the game. Sorry.
That monster though.
Yeah, we all are drinking.
That
Monster,
literally was
so-
like a
Pop
high
Culture Punk
school.
sponsored by Monster Energy.
That was literally like a high school jock diss. Like, oh, you're so smart.
Dude, the big
that
words.
was
a big jock. They're so dumb. You too. Continue.
Anyway, I think it doesn't need to be super crazy payoff, but big ones would be like a narrative. I'm playing through because I want to see what happens in the story, and I like the characters, and I want to spend time with them, and I like where the narrative is going. So like Persona 4 and the Mass Effect series and stuff like that. One of the other things too is just like skill. Like I'm progressing. Like I don't like games where I feel like it's like I've been doing the same thing for like 20 hours that I've been playing it, and I'm not getting any better at this game as the skill, as like the bar for how good I need to be for the game. It's like game isn't getting harder. It's not getting more fun. They're not introducing things that are making me have to adapt and like be better at the game. It's just like, and then I think those are really the biggest two, is just like story. So some kind of like narrative payoff. They don't have to both be in there, but I tend to enjoy those games, or games that I feel are forcing me to progress. I hate monotony within a certain extent. Some things can be repetitive. That's okay, but like
fetch quests on fetch quests on.
Yeah, fetch quests.
Yeah. But there's some games that do it
hunting
very
for
well.
loot drops.
Do we have a specific series in mind we're kind of bashing on?
But because like those things aren't bad, I think inherently, but I think it's the system and like, why am I doing that? Am I doing that because in getting that thing, I'm preparing for a boss that like in having that thing, it's going to help me beat the boss easier, or it's going to get even better rewards to fight the next thing, or to like, you know, or am I just getting it to have it because you just
like if I grind for like 10 hours now, will it pay off in the battle?
Exactly.
And having all this dope armor and guns.
Exactly.
Or if I grind now, it's just because I want dope armor
It's just
and
because
guns,
like
but it's not going to pay off
Yeah.
later.
If I can give an
Yes.
example to tie to that, I talked about Ni no Kuni 2 a little bit and why I've gotten so into that. And one thing I realized is that that game is full of fetch quests, and like even the main storyline is kind of driven by like, you have to go do this, you have to grab this thing, but it's in the context of you are building a kingdom, and that's like the purpose of it. So like, even though I know it's a fetch quest and it's kind of monotonous, it's still under the context of you are doing this so that your kingdom can be a better place. And it's like, and the side quests you do, actually, it's a really cool system. Like it varies from like fighting super strong monsters, or like, you know, finding materials or whatever, or like doing a specific thing. But like the people that you help actually like come to your kingdom and like move in, and you can like recruit them and allocate them to a certain spot. And I think they're like, I see the monotony and recognize it, but at the same time, I am under the impression of, I know there's a purpose towards it, and it's driving me. It's serving this greater purpose of like building the kingdom that you're building. So that's where I do agree with like monotony to a point. Whereas some other games, I won't say what games, some of them you grind and grind and grind, but then when you look at the long aspect, you think, why am I doing this again? And then if you don't have an immediate answer, that's not a good sign. That's why I really, really do not like the majority of phone games, is because they're obviously like they're made to just cater to the monotony and like feed on your endorphins, that like you keep getting that trigger response of the reward aspect and stuff like that. And so they're made to just be addictive and to just keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over again.
Definitely.
And that's why I don't get into phone games most of the time.
And to build off that point of games that do that well, I haven't played the new Monster Hunter, but I know the premise of Monster Hunter is very similar, of you're doing something repetitive and fighting very similar monsters, but you're doing it to get materials to build stronger armor and weapons, so then you can go hunt
even
the
bigger
boss
monsters.
monster, which gets you even better stuff to help you fight. Like I know in the newest one, it's cool, like they're releasing like raids basically with monsters, where you can like hunt one thing with like 6 friends, and they're like huge. I think they're called them like elder dragons, so they sound super boss, but
that's
but
Skyrim.
it's like no, they're like literally called like
elder
dragons. I think they're called like elder dragons or something like that. But just that whole idea that even though I'm doing something repetitive, there is like a goal. And like Persona 4 is another great example. Was it my favorite thing in the world to have to spend an extra like 2 hours in a dungeon getting my levels up? You get it, like, you know, shooting 10 levels up.
Definitely not.
No, but you get to the boss, and then the boss is manageable, and then it gets you through the story, which is what I'm playing for. Then you kind of like rinse, repeat, and it's like, okay, it kind of like offsets and weights. But
Definitely.
That's why I rag on Destiny, or even like The Division did that too. I'm actually excited for The Division 2. I hope they kind of build
Even
on
though
it.
you just said that.
Well, but there's like
they made The Division a lot better.
Yeah.
By like halfway through its life cycle, but by then nobody's playing it anymore because they botched the release.
And I mean, they added some
hopefully
cool
with
stuff
2,
and
they
some
kind of
cool
got the
raids.
message.
What did they botch in the original release?
There was just some things that I know they added like a whole like horde mode that you could do, and there was like different tiers, and depending on which tier you jumped in, you could get like purple drops and things like that. Like it was like a guarantee, like if you finish the horde mode, there's like purple drops at the end. So that was another thing that I think that like Ubisoft did better than Destiny. With Destiny, it was like if you were guaranteed a purple drop for like doing this incredibly hard thing, it's like, oh well, there's an incentive. Like, okay, well, how can I grind this other stuff to then go do that and then to be guaranteed that drop? Versus like when I was playing the first one, you're just like, I'm just gambling for the sake of it, basically.
Literally, you could go to the first world and just wipe. I remember that was like, people found out the algorithm was that if you just went to the first world and fought like a huge horde of like level 1 monsters, you would have more of a chance of getting rare stuff than like fighting an actual insane
Well, that's
boss
the thing. When I was
monster.
playing Destiny 2, like you could do raids and have a chance of getting rare stuff that take a long time, or you could just grind out the daily activities and get, like, because of the way the drops were, you'd get the same things for less time. And
exactly.
So it just became well, why am I?
And that's where the imbalance comes in. That I'm saying makes a bad game is when your effort versus your reward is unbalanced. Because like, I also don't want to do something really stupid and then be like, oh, here's like a legendary weapon. And you're like, okay, well, the game is like not worth playing because it's gonna be stupid easy.
Yeah.
You know, so it's in.
We got to think of a game to rag on besides Destiny. I just realized.
No, it's.
Well,
I think it's.
And I think we're not here to like rag on video games.
No, I'm saying
we're just
more
using
so
that
like
as a counterbalance.
Well, that's what I'm saying is like we should. I'm saying for me personally, I want to find a game that's like, or try to think of a game that I can use as like a example of like, this is what I don't like in games.
Yeah.
But it always ends up being Destiny. So it's hard to be like.
I'm trying to think. I think like that's the thing is there haven't been a lot of games recently that I've played that I was like, oh, this aspect just like I really didn't like.
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, we've talked about this a little bit before, but like the reason I analyze games a lot more now, and I'm very selective and very picky about what games I play and buy.
Yeah.
Like I barely have any new games anymore. I haven't even played like Mario and Zelda. I like don't have them anymore because I sold them just because like I don't have the time to enjoy every game, and so I have to be very selective about the games that I do play. Like Far Cry 5, I think is the newest game I have. Should have got some water. But I think it sounds weird, but I think I've only played good games in the past couple like months or year even, because like I just don't have time to play games that I would even consider being bad. So
we haven't really tried to gamble on any games.
Yeah,
I think that's
that's our problem. But also, I don't have extra money just lying around to like try games. Yeah, and even games that I know that I would like God of War, like it just looks amazing to me. Yeah, I just don't buy it because I don't have. I know it's gonna be $20 in like next year. First of all, so like it's just like. I have other games I can play, and then I can just buy it when it's cheaper.
And then the timing aspect too.
And that's the same thing with like Mario and Zelda. Like
definitely.
I can just buy them basically at any point whenever I decide I want to jump in again.
Right.
So,
So, but anyway, so those are kind of my things of like what make good games. I think also just for subjective things, I tend to like things that have some kind of story.
Yeah.
Not always. I think. What's really cool is I know playing Bloodborne, it doesn't have like a specific narrative, but there's a lot of subtext stuff.
A lot of lore.
There's a lot of lore and things like that.
I think that's
pretty
is, like,
cool.
my favorite thing about games.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of another game I played recently that has that. Or things with like specific objectives. I really like Dishonored for that. Like your whole thing is like you're assassinating all these guys because they killed your wife and they stole your daughter, and like you need to get her back, so you need to like kill these dudes, and you're like, yeah, let's get them. And then just like usually gameplay too, like it doesn't need to be, I mean, that's like the biggest thing I think, but I don't have, it's like, oh, it has to be a first person shooter. It's just like something interesting and fun that is like worth repeating and playing. Like that's
the thing about Destiny that I think Destiny is still the best.
Oh, it's
in my opinion, the best first-person shooting mechanics I've experienced.
Well, then mixed with like the superpowers and the buffs and stuff like that, and just like
it feels so smooth. But like
it's an incredibly smooth shooter.
Yeah,
it's just the rest of it that is imbalanced that doesn't fit. You know, but then it's like you have something like Fallout where the shooting is horrific.
It is really bad.
But then like the story is like better. It's like more interesting. But then even for me, that I tried really hard to get into Fallout 4, but I just like couldn't do it because I just wasn't like there was that disconnect where it was like, yeah, the narrative is really interesting and I want to play it, but I get irritated that
Even
I keep
for-
dying.
But the progression to get through it, you have to go through the mechanics itself, and if you don't like it, then
Yeah.
I mean that's why like I understand when people say they don't like turn-based games, because like then I'm not going to
Oh,
recommend.
definitely.
Then I'm
Yeah.
not going to recommend Persona
barely
or
played-
recommend
yeah.
Chrono Trigger, because like if you don't like, but you've played Pokemon though, so you have a context to what turn-based
That's the thing is, like, I grew up playing Pokemon, so like I know what turn-based is, but like it's weird. Like anytime I
Pokemon's
play another
different. It's,
turn-based
like,
game, I'm like,
different,
this
though.
is
Yeah.
dumb, and people are like, yeah, but you play Pokemon. I'm like, oh, Pokemon's turn-based. I forgot.
Yeah.
But I
'Cause
will
it
It is,
just
it is
feels-
different. I'm saying more the turn-based aspect and like trying to relate to Pokemon, because there are a lot of people that don't have any context to turn-based.
Yeah.
Like they only know shooters or they only know
So it
action
feels
games.
stunted when you jump into a turn-based game,
exactly.
and then you're like, why are my guys just like randomly stopping, and now I have to like one by
Yeah.
one.
And I do agree. Like I honestly don't like the turn-based system either in some stuff. Like I'm trying to think what game I didn't like it in.
any of the Final Fantasies. Because
No.
you really like 7 though, which is
Okay,
interesting.
yeah, this is the thing. I'll compare like the old Final Fantasy to 15. So I did play Final Fantasy 15, which is recent when I was really, really excited for it. Setting's amazing, characters are amazing. I don't really like the action gameplay. It was fun, it was entertaining and really exciting, but I think just in terms of like how I wanted the narrative to be and progress, I think when you give a system or when you give a game like that the turn-based stuff, you are able to focus on the narrative more. I think that's just an inherent quality that JRPGs have, and that's why I love like Final Fantasy VII so much, is because that game is very much like it's turn-based combat. It's pretty simple. There's the materia system, but the narrative is so strong and so interesting and captivating that you don't really mind like you had said with Persona 4, don't really mind grinding to get to that point.
That was a lot of grinding.
And also, and why don't I, if I can
Oh,
take the
go
floor
run
for my favorite stuff. Narrative is a big thing for me, I would say. If the gameplay is too much where it's like, it's getting kind of confusing. That actually happened with me with Radiant Historia that I got on the 3DS. Really, really good RPG and concept for like this. Basically, this dude gets this book called the White Chronicle that moves him through different nodes of time, and you can like go. It's not just like you make a decision and then that's your decision. You can like go back in time and redo it and see the different results, which is really cool. But there was so much stuff to it, and there was like so many. Like I made one decision, and then it was like, oh well, you should. They vaguely say you should look back and see what is different, and I was like, okay. And then I went back, and it's like I don't know what to look for, and it just messed with me, and it didn't really make me want to progress, and that's why I haven't played it in a while, is because the gameplay itself was kind of hindering me, and I was like, I don't really know what to do. Whereas with other JRPGs, I appreciate like a very kind of simplistic but interesting turn-based system. I think the best turn-based gameplay in any JRPG is Persona 5, because Persona 4, you guys can admit, like even though it was really grindy, it still was entertaining to some point.
Well,
And
it never felt monotonous. It was just a lot.
Yeah,
But like it was necessary because you needed to get to the next point.
Exactly.
Like you
when
said
there's
before.
mechanics built in where you can make battles pretty quick if you understand. Same thing with like Pokemon. If you understand that
weaknesses.
this,
and,
if you understand weaknesses and how this persona this, and you can level up, and then S links, it makes it easier. So it's like worth investing the time in versus just some like you're saying, some RPGs or turn based where it's just straight.
Exactly, and where
fight.
what I think puts Persona 5 over the other two, because like I've been debating about this, like which one I like the most. I'd say I'd probably put 5 up there, even though it's the newest one. 5, in terms of the turn-based system, like the cinematics and stuff, like battles are just flashy and cool, and the systems in place too. They add stuff like you can use guns and ammunition and stuff like that, or you can like tag team and stuff like that. You can kind of do that in the other games too, but it just adds these little bit more things to just make it flashy and cool, and that's how it should be. Is like you don't want to just have the characters sit, throw a punch, go back. Which I mean, if the story's still good, I'll go play through that. But yeah, let's see. So narrative. In recent years, I've realized replayability is a big thing, which you don't think about, but for some reason, I'm drawn back to so many, like all the games on my list are games that I consistently go back to and just replay over and over again. So like, best example is Chrono Trigger. I have not beaten Chrono Trigger, but I've gone back and replayed the beginning at least 4 or 5 times. but it's so good, and the intro is so strong and interesting that like I don't mind going back and just starting a new file again because it's just that good of a game and good RPG. For context, probably my top 2 games are Legend of Zelda Wind Waker and Fire Emblem for the Game Boy Advance. Fire Emblem's
the Game Boy Advance Fire Emblem is fantastic.
I tell people all the time, it's not for everyone because it's a strategy game.
Yeah, what would that
turn-based strategy?
Turn-based strategy game
or real-time strategy? That's not the same thing. That's like XCOM, wouldn't it?
That's XCOM, yeah.
Okay.
Turn-based strategy would be the book because there's like player phase and then enemy phase. Fire Emblem is a weird one because like there's really no other strategy game that I like but Fire Emblem, but the system they have in place for it is just so well-rounded and interesting, and especially the reason why I like specifically, I think it's number 7, the Blazing Sword, I think it's called. Yeah. So the number set, like the first one to come to America, the reason why I love it so much is because it is the exact same story over and over again. And I played that game 8 or 9 times over, but for some reason the story is still interesting to me, and you can have like support link conversations with certain characters. So like basically not every playthrough is the same. Like you can link certain people with each other and stuff like that and set relationships and learn about, like there was one dude who he was this really, really hard character to recruit, but I got him on my team and then found out like, oh, he can have this conversation with this person. And then I did that. And then you find out his whole backstory about like, you know, he was on this pirate ship with his dad and his dad was like a slave owner and stuff. And he was saying that like, I don't want to turn to that lifestyle or that kind of, or he's a merchant or something like that. But it was just interesting seeing that like every time I went back and played it, there was some new aspect to the characters of the story that I was learning that I didn't know before. And that is why that game still is like a special place in my heart. And the animations, and I love sprite animation and stuff, and it just looks cool.
Definitely.
So yeah, just replayability is a big thing. If I'm willing to go back to it and play it again shortly after I beat it, or like if I haven't picked it up in a while and I'm willing to restart it, it's a very good sign. So, and I mean, like, it's not all the case because like Persona 5, I would say doesn't really have replayability only because it's such a long game, but it's still a game that I would love, like, once I beat it, to go back in like a month or 2
wait
and restart it over again. Yeah. Because then that's one where it's a different playthrough too, is you're setting up different relationships with other people that you didn't in your first playthrough and stuff like that. So
looking at the clock, we have about 10 minutes, and I know
Jeez.
there's like 5 or 6 things that we could easily go on for another hour discussing. But I think one on the list that is interesting that maybe we can close on, because I would say it's a little more divisive, especially where systems and consoles are heading, is graphics and like what you weighed in on that. Because
I think for me, like one of the big things that defines what captures me is, like we talked about before, is the game doing what it's meant to do well. And that's usually the thing that will get me to say that's a great game. But the thing that draws me in to want to play the game is often like, what does it look like? What is the atmosphere? I'm a very like atmosphere lore heavy guy, so I like games that draw me in. Basically, like, I like how the game makes me feel while I'm playing the game. And there's very few games to me these days that make me feel a certain way about the atmosphere and about the way the story is playing out and the way you should feel about your character and the characters you relate to. And I feel like in the grand scheme of things, like, graphics often don't matter in the long run. I think pushing graphics in the gaming sphere is good because it's creating challenge and it's creating this like competitiveness. Like when you look at God of War, like I'm just like, holy crap, like that's breathtaking. Like the detail and like even just like his beard, you can like, it just looks like a real beard. You're like, what the heck? And like it's just like every detail, and you look at that and you're like, man, video games have come so far. But like when you look at all of the games that were like pushing graphical fidelity at their time and like the things that were heralded as like the graphic defining moments, you look back and they're like, that looks like trash.
That's exact. There is a great quote from Dunkey. He was talking about graphics in video games, and he was saying one game that like back in the day is going to look like, he's like, it's going to be graphically amazing and like astound everybody, but then 10 years down the line it's going to look like freaking Tim and Eric. Like
and
skits and stuff like that, which I agree with. It's a lot of games don't age well, and that's just kind of a natural fact, and that's why I personally, graphics are not a huge deal.
Mm-hmm.
If it looks like really, really bad, if it hinders the gameplay, then that's going to be an issue.
I think that's the big thing.
But,
is if it literally looks, there's a difference I think between, because there are some people who would say like, oh, 16, 32-bit, that's not, that's crap. It doesn't look good. It's like, well, you have games like Owlboy and Shovel Knight and things that are fantastic, but they're in a more simplistic style that aren't like quote unquote graphically powerful. But you also have games like Order 1886 or whatever the year, I thought it was 1886.
1886. Yeah.
That was just amazing graphically.
but an awful
But
game.
it was terrible. Like it was, the
I feel
shooting
like the
was cool.
idea was so cool too. But
And
they
that
just,
was
like,
the thing.
yeah.
And that was people's whole point is it was like you had such a dynamite game here. Like just the concept, the setting, you're a huge steampunk fan.
Mhm.
It was like totally steampunk
I was super excited for that game,
1800s
but
London with like werewolves and stuff, and that was
the first game where I was
awesome.
like, man, I need to get a PS4.
It was so cool.
Yeah.
But because I ended up buying it because I was like, this is gonna be sweet.
I remember that.
And
then
I
I
just-
asked you about the next week. You're like,
I was so mad because it was like 10 hours long, and it was it
Well,
was
there
like
was-
they
there was
put their
nothing in
whole
there.
effort
Yeah.
into the graphics, and
Yeah.
it was like I don't care how good his beard looks.
yeah,
you
literally,
know?
I remember there was one point where you were like, it was such a filler. You were obviously like, oh, what filler is like? The guy was literally like, check out this contraption I made, and it's like, tilt.
You had to literally
tilt,
look at
yeah,
it.
tilt the
You
thing.
literally
using
had
the
to be
circles.
the guy, and like you couldn't just like skip it. You had to like pick up this telescope
And look
or,
at
like,
it, tilt
pick up
it
this
around.
wrench, and just
Yeah.
oh, I know, interesting. Look at the intricacies of this wrench. This is
yeah.
And you're like, when can I fight the werewolves?
Yeah, it's like when am I gonna play? And so, because I think
a game should never make you reach that point of like, I just want to play the game.
yeah,
That I think that, and that happens in a lot of. That is why AAA titles are such a gamble for me. Like, I think Far Cry 5 is a good example because it's like, you know what you're getting. It's a Far Cry game, and so you're just gonna have this outrageous adventure. But like games like Tomb Raider, games like Uncharted, is like, they look amazing and I would love to play them, but I know there's so much stuff in those kind of games where it's like, look at the tapestry, look at this, look at this, look at this thing, examine this thing. It's like,
Mhm.
I want to do stuff. And I mean, that's ironic for me to say because I love turn-based
Mhm.
games or you choose
Yeah.
your action, but that's progressing in a really, really, most of the time, a really good narrative.
Mhm.
So I'm willing to do those actions. But for those games, it stops the narrative entirely just to be like, look at this telescope, look at
Mhm.
this wrench. And that frustrates me
Yeah.
quite a bit when games do that.
it's. I feel like it's the dev being like, it's pretty cool, right? And you're
Yeah.
like, I'm not shooting werewolves, so I don't care.
Yeah.
But I feel like with graphics, like it could either be a hindrance to the game, like you said with 1886, or it can just like boost the gaming experience. And I think because I've been seeing stuff like they just released an enhanced patch on the Xbox One X for Red Dead, like the original Red Dead Redemption, and that game still looks amazing, like to this day. And so like you have certain games where you're just like, man, these people were pushing the graphics in their time. But it's like, I think graphics for me are like almost last on the list as far as like, will I play this game if the graphics are bad? No, because I still play the original, like Fallout 3, which looks like a potato now.
Yeah, potato mode.
But I can still play it and enjoy it because I know how the game works and I appreciate it for what it was in its time. Like, people look at Skyrim and say it looks like trash. I'm like, yeah, but in its time, like, this was the thing. So like, it's if graphics are the only things that's important, then you're never going to enjoy old games anymore because like
But you're probably never gonna enjoy games in general.
Yeah.
it's
because
like,
like most
who
of us
cares?
don't have the tech to like always, like, I still don't have a 4K TV. I probably won't get one until 8K is a thing. And so like graphics are cool, and I think graphics are an important part of what pushes the industry forward, but I don't think they're like the be all end all as far
Yeah.
as like what makes a good game.
I think to your point too that you mentioned God of War, and we'll wrap up pretty quick, but I think what is important is that it like the right game embraces it, because I think of God of War, it's, even though it's an action game, it's built to be very cinematic in a lot
Yeah.
of ways, and the action is supposed to be very like bloody and violent, and so having the detail in the gore and in the moments where he's, you know, chucking his axe into some skeleton's face and then like ripping it off and tearing his head off, and it's like if it was like a stick figure, you'd be like, all right, like,
Or if even
whatever.
it was just like a,
Yeah, exactly. Same thing with, I'm really excited for Detroit. Become Human.
Mhm.
And if you watch the trailers for that game just looks spectacular. Like, I think it might rival and maybe better than God of War, which people are saying is the best looking game, even above Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yeah, people are saying it looks better than that.
But I think with what makes Detroit different is it's a literal noir playing the narrative,
Is that
making
kind of like
decisions.
that
Heavy Rain.
Heavy Rain
It's
style?
by the
like
same
you're
people.
making narrative decisions
Yep.
and stuff?
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's by the same folks who did Heavy Rain.
Okay.
And so it's one of those games where it's like, it's kind of designed so if that looked kind of like Skyrim, I probably wouldn't be interested because I'm going to be staring at these people's faces the whole, however long it is, 20 hours.
Yeah.
And if I'm doing that and they look horrible or the setting and everything looks muddy and broken, it's like, I don't want to spend time with this. But
And
it
that's the
just,
thing.
it looks, and it's all cyberpunk, and it's like, oh,
I
it's
know,
gonna be
especially
so
with
good.
stuff like that, you want it to be crisp because you want
Yeah.
to enjoy the environment. And
Exactly.
you want to enjoy
Yeah.
everything. But it always bums me out when I tell people to play a game and they're like, "Oh, that's old." Like that.
Oh, it's such a
looks-
terrible-
such
Such a
looks
dumb
like
argument.
the graphics look so bad. I'm like, I
You
have
don't
nothing to
get
say.
it.
I have
You don't
nothing to say.
understand.
I'm like, but you're missing out on so much by
Right.
not enjoying the old stuff, and it's so cheap too.
If you talk to the gaming community, the greatest games ever made are old games.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
I still think people, well, maybe not now because Breath of the Wild, but like Ocarina of Time is still held in like
I think it's still up there as
super
as some
high
of the
esteem.
best.
it was
Yeah.
number one on. I think Game Informer did like a poll, and they had like top 300 games or something. I think Ocarina was
Ocarina of Time's still number
like
one.
user rated. So
Nice.
I think 2 Zelda games were in the top 10. So
That one be
It's
that one
Zelda.
I feel like
surprised me.
Nintendo just gets the love by everybody because it's like
And to me, that's the thing
everybody
that I've
grew up
loved the
playing
most about Nintendo is they just did not go down.
well, and that's the
the
thing.
graphics
Yeah, I
thing.
think Nintendo shows that like graphics, in the way that we understand them, don't necessarily matter in the longevity of
right.
a video game.
Because like, yeah, even if you look at Breath of the Wild, it's not the most graphically. I mean, it looks. I mean, I would say
It looks
my
amazing for what
it's
it is,
beautiful
but it's not
and-
like a Horizon Zero Dawn like 4K
Where you have like
monster,
god lights,
where you
and
can
all
see
these
all
things.
of his like
yeah,
intricacies,
exactly.
and you can
Right.
see like the texture on Kratos's like,
Right.
on his
Those
knees.
nips.
Kratos's nips. Yeah.
Jeez.
Be like Mario Odyssey, like you can just see Mario's nips.
Dude, that would be so funny to
4K
Photoshop
Mario
those two
nips.
together. It's like Kratos and
Both of
Mario
them in
running around.
swimsuits.
Yeah,
Oh
running
god.
around the beach.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So
Anyway, well, it's about that time. We got to go see a
man,
Quiet
we
Place.
barely scratched the surface.
I know.
Of that.
We'll
Yeah.
we'll bring this.
We'll do a
I'm sure
follow-up.
this will come
Yeah.
up again, but more or less, just enjoy stuff. Keep it
Enjoy the
posy.
games, play
Yeah.
old games, play new games, play
Yup.
games that you like.
Find
don't
what you-
play
yeah,
games
find
don't
what you-
like. Yeah.
Experiment. Find what you love. Like,
But be smart.
Be-
oh
yeah.
Lord, please be smart.
don't
be
just
the
buy
like,
a ton
oh
of
hey,
games.
it's Battlefront 2. I was excited for that. Oh boy, you can check our podcast out on Stitcher, Google Play, iTunes, and YouTube. The episodes are slowly but surely getting on there. So if you want to see a fun little intro segment, either from the little narration things that we do in the beginning, which for the past couple and for some of the early ones were all pop culture references that we based around the episode. Now they're like little stupid skit things that we're doing. I don't know what we'll do for this one.
Are we doing something?
Uh,
We should do the thing we talked about
The thing, you know.
and just film me
the
doing
thing.
it.
That would be
I think
kind of
it'd be funny.
Let's do that.
Let's do it.
Let's do that. We'll do it. We'll
Gotta
do it
get
after the
cracking,
movie.
though.
Yeah, because we got to go. So
Got to scare my pants off.
this has been the Pop Culture Punks podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Keep it posy in the pit, and we'll see you next week for another moshing session.
Rickety rick rick.
Was that a mosh?
I want my Szechuan sauce.
Oh.
Voices in my heart tell me to throw it all away, to toss it in the wind and forget yesterday. But the crowd comes singing back with that. don't have the time to waste all my days rewriting all these lies. I'm not giving up. I just don't have the time to spend another moment living someone else's life. I'm not giving up. I just don't have the time to waste all my days rewriting all these lies. I'm not giving up. I just don't have the time to spend another moment living someone else's life.